Sounds good. This meeting has begun. Welcome everybody. Our guests, especially. I'm glad you guys are here. Thanks for coming, you guys. I'm glad to have everybody. Welcome to our Toastmasters meeting this evening. Nearby, our favorite section of some good corn syrup. Lots of good candies over there. M&M's on sale. Delicious. And it's nice and hot out there, so we're all enjoying the weather as usual. Iowa summer. The mission of this club, let's begin with. The mission of a Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn fosters self-confidence and personal growth. As president of this Toastmasters chapter, my name is Dennis. It's my mission and all of our missions to provide that and do the best we can. So I'm glad you guys are joining us. To begin with, before we move on with our Toastmaster, would you guys like to talk a little bit about your goals in this meeting? About what you guys are interested in? What brought you guys over here to Toastmasters?
My name's Ed. I'm Orion's stepdad. I'm here to see him do a fantastic job of being the Toastmaster.
Awesome.
Or if he screws it up, to watch that too.
Yeah, either way. It's a win-win.
It is so flexible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're like, nice. Awesome.
I'm here, I'd like to build my confidence. I go to a church and they've invited me to speak a few times, and I think this would be really helpful to getting me used to that. I was in the service a bit, and we would do a mission briefing, safety briefings. I got a little experience. I'm not that great. I'm here to kind of get more. Found a place on some motivational, inspirational videos on YouTube, and I've never heard of it. I've only known about it for a week. It's really nice to be here, and I can't wait to see what it's about.
Yeah, it's the right place.
My name is Alex.
Alex.
Alex Trejo from Mount Pleasant.
Good to have you, Alex. And then, I think you look familiar, but can you reintroduce yourself?
Okay.
I've seen you around if you like.
So I'm Mesa. I'm from Iran, and this is my first time participating in this event. Aminoli introduced this event to me, so I'm so happy to be here. I'm here to see how people interact with this community, how people get involved with this event. So try to learn about this event. Thank you.
Excellent. Without further ado, before anybody defenestrates me from taking too long up here, that's our word of the day, by the way. We'll go over that later. Let's give a round warm of applause for Orion.
Hi, my name's Orion. Welcome, honored guests, viewers at home, and fellow Toastmasters. Part of what happens in this club is there's people that have taken on different roles that give the meeting more of a structure and help the thing move more smoothly along. So the first role is that we have a timer. Emery is the timer. Would you please stand up and tell us what your role is about?
Thank you. And unless defenestrated in the next few moments, my job is to time the speeches. The prepared speech by Manoli is 5 to 7 minutes. The green light will come on at 5, the amber light at 6, and the red light at 7. And she will have 30 seconds after that to complete her speech, or risk being clapped off and defenestrated of her position on the platform. The table topic speeches are 1 minute minimum. The green light comes on at 1 minute, the amber light is 1.5 minutes, and the red light at 2 minutes. And The speakers have 30 seconds after that to finish. Evaluators should keep it in the 2-minute range, I believe. 2:30. Okay. So I will give a report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmer. Not very loud, is it?
Down to one hand clapping.
This is louder. Okay. Next we have Jean for the grammarian. Would you please stand up and tell your about your role?
Thank you. As a grammarian, I have 2 jobs. The first is to make note of creative use of the language tonight, and then also usages that I might think could use a little improvement, just so that we all make sure our grammar and usage is really in good shape. The second job that I have is to introduce the word of the day. And I have to tell you, I have been getting a lot of guff for using that word, that nobody was going to use it, and already I'm writing down people using it. I thought I was going to be defenestrated myself as the grammarian for using this word.
I second the motion.
Sir, the motion has not been made yet, but you will have your chance to second, yes. So what is this word? This word is defenestrate, and it's a verb. There's also a noun, a defenestration, and I don't know if there are adjective or adverb forms, but it means to remove someone from a position of power or authority. A secondary, rarely used term, but the one that made Dan suggest this to me, so he's the one, is to throw someone out of a window. So perhaps when you remove someone from a position of power and authority, you might also want to throw them out the window just to get double whammy on that word. I don't know. But it does mean to remove from a position of power authority. So an example of a sentence would be, many people in opposition to governments around the world want to defenestrate their leaders. Okay? And I'll be looking for usages of that word during the meeting. Thank you.
Next we have Art talking about his role as the odd counter.
Good evening. My role as dot counter is quite a bit simpler than that. It's to note the use, if any, of what we call filler words or filler noises, being a popular one. Like, you know, so, but, and, making of tongue clicks, false starts, and any others that seem to be unique or personal to you that catch my ear. And I'll give a brief report at the end of the meeting.
All right, and for the general evaluator, we have Will, who's defenestrated Prana because he gave his power away by not showing up. So, Will, general evaluator. Would you please explain your roles, or you don't explain it?
Yeah, please.
Okay, never mind. And then we'll have Dan as the joke master later on. We'll hear from Dan. So next we're moving into our prepared speeches section of the meeting. Tonight we will only have one prepared speech. Normally we have 2 or more and vote on which one we want to win is what we think is the best speech. But it's subjective, but normally there's a vote afterwards. In this case, as long as she does the speech within the right amount of time, she'll win. So Manoli will be speaking in just a moment, but first we have her evaluator, Will, to give the objectives of her speech.
Manoli is doing Project 5 from the Competent Communicator Manual. Her objective is to let me rephrase. The executive summary here is that body language is an important part of speaking because it enhances your message and gives you more credibility. It also helps release any nervousness you may feel. Stance, movement, gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact help communicate your message and achieve your speech purpose. Body language should be smooth, natural, and convey the same message that you want your listeners to hear. Manoli will use stance, movement, gestures, facial expression, and eye contact to express her message and achieve her purpose, and she'll make that smooth and natural. Her speech tonight will be between 5 to 7 minutes. Tonight I'm pleased to introduce one of Fairfield's rising stars, Manoli Nayagar. She will literally focus on our body's nonverbal communication system and how it is surprisingly effective to communicate to each other through body language. With a pre-med degree from Maharishi University of Management, Manoli is uniquely qualified to deliver this talk, entitled Actions Speak Louder Than Words. Please welcome Manoli Nayagar.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and viewers at home. How many of you have heard actions speak louder than words? Okay. Well, just from your body language and your raising of your hands, you expressed to me an answer without talking. Surprisingly, data analysis has shown that there are 3 parts to communication. There's speaking, there's listening, and there's nonverbal communication. Now, data shows that only 7% of spoken word contributes to communication, while an amazing 55% contributes to body language, the way we smile, talk, stand, and the way we present ourselves. Body language is not only a representation of our body, it's a valuable key to our emotions and what we feel inside. Our subconscious brain automatically does things that we aren't consciously aware of. So I'm moving my hands, and subconsciously consciously I'm not telling my brain move your hand, but my body likes to express itself and explain, so I'm using my hands. For example, if you see marathon runners, as soon as they finish the race, hands up in the air, it's a feeling of amazingness because they've just completed or achieved something. And also, when people are feeling sad and down and depressed, you see that their posture changes. They're more inward, they have a hunched back. And it shows that feeling of sadness. Being able to read body language is a very important key factor everyone should be aware of. Doesn't mean you have to really look at someone intently and try and figure out what they're doing or thinking about you. It just means paying attention to the small or even invisible things that we don't catch the first time. If you're talking to someone and their hands are crossed and they're looking down, this position shows defensiveness or fear in some situations. Or if they're scratching their neck and you're asking them something, this position shows sometimes they might be lying about something, or if they're looking to the side instead of having good eye contact with you. Body language not only helps you read people, but it helps you express yourself. If you're going to an interview, you want to be alert, sharp, you want to have good posture, you want to show the interviewer that you're in charge, you're fully present, and you want to be able to communicate with them. You want to be able to read their communication. If you're talking too much and you can see they're a bit bored, then you want to try and be more, you want to pay attention to their needs and answer the questions accordingly. Body language is also important if you're paying attention to, if you're in a different place and you're unaware of people, or you don't, a new place, and you might be walking outside and you see a certain group of people, you might feel a bit scared, but it's important to be aware of all of these things so that you can take care of yourself. Many studies have shown that body language can also change your mind. A lot of people know that it's our mind that changes our body, but surprisingly, only a few recent studies have shown that there's a possibility by using our body, we can influence our mind. For example, there was a test done on a few there were a few people who were interviewing for a job, and the test had them go into a separate room and they asked them to do some power poses. So one group did power poses and the other group had no power, didn't do anything. And what is a power pose? This is a power pose, a Superman pose. It enlivens your energy. It helps you be more confident. Chest forward, back straight. And then they had the one group. So one group did the power poses and the other group didn't do anything. And they then had them be interviewed for 5 minutes, and the interview was recorded. And they found that the interviewer, they had them be very neutral. So they weren't allowed to show any expressions. They just asked questions and the interviewees answer the questions. Then at the end of the recording, they had some people review these recordings, and they didn't tell them at all who was which people did the poses, but they had them evaluate these recordings. And at the end of the recordings, these people decided that they were more likely to hire the people who did the power poses, but they didn't know who did the power poses. They would base it off of their body language, the way they reacted to the questions, and the way they answered. But this just goes to show that by doing those different power poses, it enlivened different things. And the people who reviewed the videos did not know their credentials, their background. They were just so taken by their body language and the way they reacted to the interviewer. And they were more likely to employ those people. So body language is very important for everyone to know about. It contributes to more than 55% of our communication. And so by paying a little more attention to people around you, your own body language, you can make a difference and accomplish a goal or a task more effectively by knowing what you want to convey through body language. Thank you.
Speech by Manoli. Please take 2 minutes to evaluate the speaker on the little evaluation sheet. We hear from Emery, if she qualified.
Manoli did qualify.
All right.
She did.
So normally now we vote if there were more than one, but Manoli wins because there's just her. All right. And we'll be giving her an award later for that. Next, we have Will to be the general evaluator and then introduce himself as the evaluator for Manoli. So, Will.
Thank you, Orion. Okay, this was Manoli's speech number 5, and I think she did a pretty good job. I'll have some suggestions and some things I really appreciated about this speech. One, I loved how Manoli was up. I came up here and she was confident. She didn't seem like she was nervous, like she really wanted to head for that door rather than to the lectern. And that's always a good thing, to appear confident, even if maybe on the inside you aren't feeling that way. I have no idea. As far as her most distracting physical mannerism I could pick out, it was probably the clasping your hands in front, kind of in this sort of thing. And I actually do it a lot too. I usually tend to try to keep my my stomach in. That's my thing, but that's something that if you wanted to, that would be something to pay attention to. Did Manoli force gestures into her speech, or did she strike a pretty even balance between posture, facial expressions, eye contact, or whole body movement? I feel like Manoli struck a pretty good balance. As a whole, I would have liked to have seen more gestures and movement in this speech, but I liked that what was in there seemed very natural. When you were showing the marathon runner, when you were showing the sort of the unhappy person, those seemed like natural points, and you didn't seem like you were trying to force gesture in at any point. So I like that. I also like how you started off by moving around on the stage. A suggestion would be just to carry that on throughout your speech. I noticed as it went on, you tended to kind of migrate, to kind of be tethered to the lectern here. Also, this is an interesting thing I just found out about recently, but Manoli did a really good job of actually starting the gesture before she talked about the actual verbal point she was looking to reinforce. I had always thought you want to do it about the same time, but in reality, for better impact, you want to kind of start it and then hit your verbal point. My final suggestion for Manoli would just be more sustained eye contact with each person. I noticed you were kind of darting around a little bit. You did a great job of keeping eye contact throughout the room. Just deliver that one point to that one person, and then go to the next point, next person. All in all, I love that you asked a nonverbal question, or a question right out of the gate, and had us answer non-verbally. I thought that was a great touch. And I love the big verbal gestures you made throughout your speech. You seemed like you were really earnest and eager to talk about this and to really employ this in our own lives. And I really appreciate your speech, and I'm looking forward to your 6th speech. Thank you, Manoli.
All right, let's keep going. Choo-choo-choo-choo-choo-choo-choo. Next, we have Susanna for our topics master. And just want to emphasize that guests can participate in table topics as well. So here's Susanna.
Thank you. This section of our meeting is for impromptu short speeches. And in this part of the meeting, guests are very warmly invited to participate. If you like, you can wait till somebody else breaks the ice and starts. But we'd love to hear from some guests also this evening. For these talks, as Emery mentioned earlier, you have 2 minutes. And if you see, at 1 minute, I think, you see the green light come on. Then at 1.5 minutes, the yellow light comes on. At 2 minutes, the red light comes on, and then you have 30 seconds to complete it. And also, when I give you the topic, you can take about 30 seconds, about half a minute if you like, to sort of think of what you're planning to say. So who would like to be the first person this evening to do a table topic? Our theme this evening is garden goodness. Everything that slows us down and forces patience, everything that sets us back into the slow circles of nature is a help. Gardening is an instrument of grace. That's the theme, and so the questions will be about gardening. That can be sort of broad.
Can I just ask a question?
Certainly.
Okay, so just because we have a lot of time tonight for table topics, I thought we could, and I just asked our general evaluator, alternate maybe on, because I don't know how long we're gonna go, but maybe just so that Fraser's not evaluating 20 minutes of table topics. Is that work for you? I need to say split it, but I don't know how long we're gonna go, so, like, you wanna take a first one or something? Okay, all right, good. Okay.
So we'll have 2 table topics evaluators this evening, is that what we're talking about? Okay.
Right.
All right, who would like to go first? Great, come on, Alex. Welcome. Okay. So the topic for this evening, the question I have for you is, what place, if any, does gardening have in your life?
Quite a bit. I'm in a bit of zone denial since we live in a zone 5 and I'd like to be in a zone 10. So I like to grow palm trees personally. A lot of people think that's impossible to do in Iowa, and that's true for about 2,500 species, but there are about 10 cold hardy versions of it. I've gotten into personally a few of them. The Trachycarpus fortunii can hold about 10 pounds of snow on each frond. So if you're looking to get into palm trees, this is a good one to start with. There's also a pygmy date palm that takes quite a bit of abuse. So for somebody starting out that hasn't had a lot of experience, it's really hard to mess up a pygmy date palm. I've also kind of enjoyed growing different types of peppers. The hot ones are my favorite, the super hots. The habaneros are pretty good, but I really personally like stuff that's a lot hotter. The Carolina Reaper at 2 million Scovilles is one of the hottest, but they have a new one. It is a I'm sorry, the Carolina Reaper is the hottest. I tried to recall what may be hotter than that. That is the hottest version. If you haven't had it, it's pretty horrific. As far as anything else, gardening, your landscapes are pretty hard to do if you're not into edging already or mulching, but it's a lot of hard work. For me, you'd be best advised starting with something in a container, leave it on the patio, watering it, making sure that you haven't overwatered it. They're prone to root rot, the palm trees, and if you are not careful, you will kill it. You'll be very upset because they're very costly to get shipped from Florida to Iowa. Starting with seeds, probably the best, most affordable option. Thank you for having me. I see my time's about done, and good talk.
Thank you, good.
Great.
Thank
Okay, who's next? Fraser? Good. The next one is a little bit more philosophical. It's a quotation. A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. Could you please comment on this? Why would that be a great society?
Could you repeat it?
When people plant trees, even if they're old and they know that they'll never be able to enjoy them personally when the trees grow up. Okay.
Thank you.
You can take a minute to think about it.
30 seconds, actually.
30 seconds.
Doing things like planting trees that you know you're not going to take care of. You know you are not going to satisfy from it directly, right? But the society as a whole, the young ones growing up, will benefit. That is a great thing for society. People shouldn't be just doing things for themselves. They should also consider others. And well, the older generation, yes, they have to think of the future of the younger ones. So therefore, doing things which can enhance the situation for the younger generation or the coming generation is extremely good. So I think generally that idea is the way to go. You do things and consider everybody, the younger, and everybody taking advantage of it, not just you. Thanks a lot.
Good. Thank you for being here. Okay, who's next? Oh, good. Okay. Great. Well. All right. Here's a quotation from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Great.
What is a weed? A plant whose virtues have never been discovered. What is the plant that many people would consider a weed that you appreciate the most, and why?
I was 10 years old, enjoying summer in Iowa. Enjoying it maybe a little too much because I was out late, the bugs were out, particularly the mosquitoes, and I got bitten pretty badly. And I was, at 10, I didn't have the discipline and self-control I have on this day today. So it was a very unpleasant feeling, a very unpleasant experience. And there was one plant that brought me relief. It was I want to say it was something like called a plantain, but I think that might be wrong. I'll have to look it up. It's sort of a club-shaped plant with leaves. You can pull it, and you see it all over Iowa, particularly in my backyard. You pull it, you can chew it up, and then put it on stings and on bug bites and that kind of thing, and it helps to actually reduce the. So when I figured this out, this was an amazing experience. I probably not defenestrated, but deforested areas of my backyard of this stuff. And I was a much happier camper. You know, this thing seemed like it was a weed, but hidden right there in plain sight was a balm for my wounds. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Will. Next. Yes, Art. Okay. What do you consider your most successful gardening experience?
My most successful gardening experience definitely starts in Iowa. Didn't exist in California, where soils were thin and rocky and flinty. When I got here, I was doing work that kept me in a cubicle, in an office, on a telephone all day. And I discovered the joy of getting my hands in this incredible black dirt like I had never seen before, and it was like 2 feet deep in my yard. In California, dirt like that people fight over. Well, my most successful gardening experience was growing a plant called cicada, which a local master gardener turned me on to, which resists squash borers. It's a squash that has a vining capability, and I planted the plant at the base of my pear tree, and it grew up the pear tree and festooned the pear tree with these ridiculous squashes that some of them were straight, some of them were in curlicue. They had all kinds of shapes and varieties, and some got pretty big. So I have a photograph somewhere that I took with a camera of this pear tree looking like a squash tree. It was a bit of comedy. I think that one was the most successful. But the least successful Iowa gardening experience is my ongoing battle with trumpet vine. Can I see a show of hands? Who knows what the trumpet vine plant is or is familiar with it? Who finds it an invasive, difficult to control plant? Who actually owns one of them that they bought as a decorative plant? I've got neighbors who do that. I've been fighting this thing which wants to grow through the foundation of my house, and it's impossible to eradicate.
Yes, Emery.
The substitute timer.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a hard one, Emery.
Oh, no.
The definition of gardening can be expanded to include any undertaking that human beings take, where human beings aspire to cooperate with nature, to create something that wouldn't happen without both. Can you think of another example of people working with nature that's not working with plants in your backyard, a different type of gardening?
Thank you. Madam Table Topics Master, honored guest, fellow Toastmasters, the answer to that question is no, I cannot. But I can tell you about my gardening experience. I have a postage stamp size garden, or 3 of them, behind my house. We have a very small lot, a detached garage, and about 15 feet between the garage and the alley behind us. And so we have space for 3 little garden spots, and then we lost an ash tree in our backyard between the house and the garage, which had shaded our yard so much that we have a new spot for plantings this year. But I have made a commitment last year that since I was in Iowa, I should be a corn farmer. So I put in a dozen corn plants last year and got maybe 20 ears. Not very good, but I just identified with all these cornfields that I drive by since I was in the game too. This year I didn't expand my acreage, but I intensified my cultivation, and I put in, what did I say, a dozen plants last year? I put in 20 seeds this year, and they all came up, and so I've got corn ready to pick. In fact, I'm worried that I'm going to wait too long because a few ears are just fat, bulging, and my wife, who grew up on a farm, showed me that you can kind of pull apart the husk at the top and check the kernels, and they are nice, fat, moist things. So I think when I get home tonight, I better pick some corn. We have squash, tomatoes. Alex, I took some of my surplus squash into a fellowship cup yesterday because we can't begin to eat it all. So that's what I know about gardening.
All right, thank you. Do we have time for a few more?
Time is
We're out of time, okay.
No,
Great.
Wait, we have lots of time.
I'm looking at 8:30.
Yeah, but we're, see, this, look at that, that's.
Oh, hey.
It's not enough. So, carry on,
Okay,
carry on.
good. So let's have another volunteer. Anyone
Sure,
else?
go ahead, yeah.
Okay, Dennis.
Dennis, all right.
Could you tell us about your most frustrating gardening experience?
Oh, okay. That sounds
Frustrating, okay.
good question for me. Sure.
Okay.
My most frustrating gardening experience was my first gardening experience, because that's when I was a little shrimp growing up in North Dakota. And I think the first time I was trying to help out my dad with the garden when he tried to get me to do something a little bit useful for him was when I was around 9 years old, if I remember correctly. That, it turned out okay later on in the season. At the beginning of the season, I thought, this is extremely boring. I have to take a hose and I have to just put it over this tomato plant for 45 seconds, this cucumber for 15 seconds. And if I didn't do it right, he would be sure to bark at me. I didn't like it. It was really bad for my ego at that moment, as it would be at any moment in my life, for having somebody bark at me like that. The first time was when I was 9 years old. The best part about it was later on when I got to eat it. I love that part. There's nothing like eating fresh grown tomatoes from your own garden, even if it's up in the beautiful tundra of North Dakota. I really loved it. I really loved that you could have that big giant tomato that rather than defenestrating that king-sized tomato, you can just eat the whole thing. I love it. That part was great. The first part about it, just holding that hose for an impatient 9-year-old, that was awful. That was my worst gardening experience, beginning at 9 years old. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Next. Good.
Okay, wait, okay. I gotta remember. Go ahead. I gotta remember. Who's on? Is this you now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What's your-
Veda.
Veda. Excellent. Okay. Veda. Thomas Jefferson said that no occupation is so delightful to him as the culture of the earth, and no culture is comparable to that of the garden. Thomas Jefferson was also one of our founding fathers, so he could, in a sense, be considered a cultivator of our country. Why do you think he might have said that the culture of the earth was even more delightful to him than that?
Thank you. Madam Topic Master, Toastmasters, and guests, and myself included. I went to Monticello many years ago, and Mr. Jefferson was an extremely educated and erudite man who had the most refined taste of anyone I've ever could have experienced just from seeing his home. If you see on the back of the nickel, you see a poor silhouette of Monticello where he had his abode. And if you went there, the scientific achievement he had, the clocks, there's vast wood floors with large brass weights which went down through the floor and operated everything magnificently. If you know anything about Thomas Jefferson too, he was a gentleman and he had slaves. So it would be a lot easier for him to say that it was lovely work when he had some dozen slaves or so doing it who had their own quarters. And their own quarters were, I guess in modern terms, more like a barracks, where there was a hill that was dug out and they would have their homes in the hill like hovels. So I imagine that he would wax poetic when having his slaves do such lovely work on his plantation, his small plantation. And so I imagine that he could be very poetical and uplifted by his situation. Unlike George Washington, who was a real farmer. George Washington's house, even though larger, was much more basic and much less refined. But he went to the fields every day, and he worked along with his servants, slaves, etc. And so he was much more practically the founder of our country. Madam Topic Masters.
Anyone else? We still have more time?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Jean.
Okay, so Brendan's gonna get me again.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm gonna have to recycle one of these topics.
Do I get to pick or no?
Yes, if you'd like to.
No,
pick.
that's not fair. That's
Okay,
not fair.
that's not fair, okay.
No, you gotta tell me.
I'd like to ask you also about your most successful gardening experience.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay. Well, Madam Table Topics Master, that's a really easy question in terms of what is the most successful gardening experience I have, because anyone who knows me knows I have not just one but two black thumbs. I mean, we're talking black. I mean, we're talking plants that run screaming if I come even near them, because they know I'm going to mess them up. I like plants. I like to enjoy edibles. I like flowers. I like all of that. But I just don't seem to, I think I overwater them. I give them too much, and then they don't like that either. But I do want to mention something that was really a heavenly experience for me relative to gardening. When I was in kindergarten, so we're talking like 5 years old, my parents were renting a house that was this incredible house in Baltimore, and out the back it was just all this open fields and rolling terrain, and over here to the right was this gigantic raspberry. It was not just a bush. I don't know what you call when you have lots and lots and lots of raspberry bushes in a group, almost like a herd of raspberry bushes. But it was tremendous. And we would go in there, and the raspberries, I swear, were like grapes and like small, they were huge. And the little pieces of a raspberry, they were gigantic in themselves. So you'd put one in and it would just melt, and all those little pieces would just explode in your mouth. And it was just the most fantastic experience to go into the raspberry herd and pick out the raspberries and just gorge ourselves on these. I didn't grow them. It's probably why they survived. But I loved eating them. Thank you.
Okay. Are you volunteering? Would you
No, I'm
like
just saying,
someone?
we can.
Oh, we're good, okay.
Yeah, we'll probably.
Great, well, thank you very much to all our table topic speakers this now.
I have to see
Uh,
this.
Now, we need to find out from the timer. Emery, could you tell us who qualified?
All of our speakers qualified, and I'll read you their names.
Okay, so get ready to vote on the best table topic speaker.
They were Alex, Frazier, Will, Art, Emery, Dennis, Veda, and Jean.
Good.
Hear them again?
Yeah,
Raise your hand when I say your name.
oh, that's good. Okay. Good idea.
Alex, Frazier,
Yeah.
Frazier,
We don't know each other.
Will, that's Will, Art, Emery, Dennis, Thea, and Jean.
Good. So vote for your favorite table topic speaker. Evaluators ready to give the evaluations. Is there some negotiation about the amount of time they have? Each one of you has how many people?
Mr. General Evaluator, how much time do we have for doing this?
How many do you have?
3 to 4 each?
You have 5?
5,
I think 3 to 4 is pretty good.
I can do mine in, I can do mine in 2 to 3. I'll do mine 2 to 3, you can do yours, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, whatever, what do you want?
Probably
4 to 5?
2 to 3.
No, you should do a little more.
Okay.
You both do 3 to 4.
3 to 4.
For the timer, keep it simple for him.
Okay.
3 to 4.
Yeah, 3 to 4, yeah.
Okay.
So Jean, you'll start?
I believe.
No, Fraser will start, okay. Good. All right, Fraser, please come and evaluate your people. Thank you.
Yeah, these were some great speeches tonight. Alex started, he was very knowledgeable about his topic, very enthusiastic. The only thing I would mention is that, you could stop at since the green light come on. You didn't need to.
I would have.
Right, that would have been much tighter. Will, he did a great job. What we really could consider that was useful. And yeah, it was a pretty good presentation. It's been a balm for his wounds. I don't have anything, I didn't pick out anything I think you could do better, right? Emery, he couldn't address the topic, but he made a good segue into his garden, and he gave a pretty graphic, his presentation was graphic. The one thing I could recommend is that you could use the stage a little more instead of just standing one place, you could move around a little more. That was Emery, and then Vida. Yeah, Vida. Yeah, his presentation was very insightful. I like what he went into, almost the psyche of Thomas Jefferson. And one thing I could say, again, you could have used the stage a little more, move around. And Jean, yeah, the question was most successful garden experience. And well, she said that she didn't have any successful garden experience because she didn't have a green thumb, she had a black thumb. I like that expression. And she had very good gestures, huge bushes, and gigantic raspberries. The only thing I could say, suggestion, again, you stayed one place and delivered, you could have used it a little more, this stage.
Good, thank you.
That's all for, yeah.
Great. Jean, you have some evaluations?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I just did 3, so that's pretty good. I'll start with Fraser. It's kind of messing my mind up and back and forth and out of order. Fraser got the question about planting trees and the quote. I really like Fraser had what I call a good rap. So he started out with an opening, he elaborated, and then at the end, he concluded and he referred back to the question or to the opening statement. And that's hard to do sometimes when you're unprepared, but it really makes you look organized when you do. A suggestion for Fraser would be, funny, you gave me a comment about moving around. And I'm going to tell you, I think you're moving around a little too much. So I would say for Fraser, a little more stable platform. And then when you do make a move, it's really obvious. And then that's where you get your emphasis. Art, the most successful gardening experience. That was the one. I really liked Art, had great vocal variety, goes black dirt. And it was just, I even got a thrill at how black this dirt was, and that's not my thing usually. He had great gestures as well. He talked about what is it, Zacchetta? Zacchetta growing up the tree, and it had curly shapes, and you could really see it in your mind because Art was defining it with his gestures. And I liked that he also contrasted it with his least successful experience, which he didn't have to do. But that was a nice way to balance out the talk a little bit. So compare and contrast. What was that? Oh, those trumpet vine things? Tearing down the foundation of your house. Well, that's pretty intense. So that was fun. Dennis, most frustrating gardening experience. Oh boy, did I relate to this. Those parents, they recruit you into these jobs, and it's like, it's not even recruiting because you have no choice. But anyway, Dennis went down the downside, how boring it was, and you're standing there, and your dad's going to bark at you if you don't do it right, and you're just a kid, and it really sounded bad. And then he did do a wrap back up. He did, at the end, bring it back around to my worst experience and then my best experience. He had good gestures with all those big, juicy veggies and that tomato and just like that. My suggestion to Dennis would be a staging thing, that he could have put his worst experience over here because he already had the garden laid out. And he's telling us the story of that and the kid. And then here could be the dining table. And here's where you're just it's great and everything's good. And then you could just step forward in there. See, that's gardening. There's the worst and then there's the best. And it all comes together. Something like that, just to play with the staging of it all. Those are my people. Madam, back over to here, to our general evaluator, back to our general evaluator.
Thank you, Jean.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess it's time for reports.
No,
Nope, time to vote. That's why we have agendas, not just human memory. Mr. Timer, did all of our evaluators, both our speech evaluator and our 2 table topics evaluators, qualify tonight?
Yes, they did.
And their names, please.
And they are Will, Jean, and Fraser.
Please vote for one of those 3. And we're back. Now let's go through the reports of the meeting, starting with our timer, Emery Styron.
Our Manoli's speech was 7 minutes, right on the money. Will's evaluation was 2:46, Jean's 3:12, and Fraser's 3:13. Our table topic speakers, Alex 2:14, Fraser 1:17, Will 1:15, Art 2:24, Emery 2:22, Dennis 1:38, Veda 2:29, and Jean 2 minutes even.
Thank you, Emery. What was the time on the 2 evaluators? Or 3, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, he did.
You got me, but for Fraser and Jean.
Okay, 2:46 for you, 3:12 for
No,
Jean,
you got
3:13 for Fraser.
Thank you. And now let's hear from Jean, our grammarian of the evening.
First, our word of the day, defenestrate. We had Dennis who used it once. We had Emery who used it 3 times. Where is Emery? Back there. And he used it correctly too. I mean, with a little bit of humor. I used it once and Orion used it once. And then we had an almost ran. And that was Will. Will tried to put it in as a defenestrate. A little toggle there, but it was a good shot. It was a good shot. Okay. In terms of usages, things that I liked. I didn't really hear anything that I didn't like, but things that I did like. Alex, the pygmy day palm can take a lot of abuse. I like that. And then the Carolina Reaper, once he figured out that was the hottest one, he said it's pretty horrific. And my mouth just started burning thinking about that. So that was a good use of language. Will talked about balm for his wounds. Art said the soil in California soils were flinty. I like that. Emery said, I'm not quite sure, that he didn't expand his acreage, but he increased his intensity. Something like, I like that image of that. And he also, there's nothing fancy in terms of the vocabulary here, but I did like nice, fat, moist things. No, you didn't say kernels. You said things, nice, fat, moist things, which, could sort of set your mind wandering, I guess. Dennis said about his dad, he would bark at me. Veda, Jefferson was educated and erudite. And also waxing poetic. I like that phrase. And Fraser talking about, I think Emery's presentation was graphic. I like that. Thank you.
And now let's get the report from our odd counter, Art Atkinson.
Emery, 5 Us. Orion, 3 Us. Manoli, 1 up, 1 and. Will, 5 ums, 2 ands. Susanna, clear. Alex, 3 Us, 1 Fraser, 1 so, 2 ands. And you have a custom filler of some sort that's sort of a yeah or a or a yeah. Just slips in there. Dennis was clear. Veda, 5 Us, 1 1 so, 3 ands, and a brilliant talk. Jean, clear on all the usual ones, but you have several custom. I mean, was slipping in there. Well came along, and your favorite is like that. Like that, like that. Oftentimes repeated. That's my report.
Thank you, Art. After that somber note, let's bring up our joke master of the evening, Tabitha, to lighten our spirits.
President, Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters guests and viewers at home. What do you call a country where all the people drive pink cars? A pink carnation.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Yes.
A pink carnation. How about what do you call it when worms take over the world? Global warming. Seriously. So, Dr. Holmes, or
Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson went camping, and they pitched a tent under the stars. And Holmes says, in the middle of the night, Holmes wakes up Watson and says, "Watson, look up at the stars and tell me what you deduce." Watson says, "Well, I see a million stars, and some of them are bound to have a planet. And if there are some planets up there, a few of them probably are a lot like Earth, and so there might be life out there." And Holmes says to Watson, "You idiot, I should defenestrate you. Someone has stolen our tent."
Yeah, that could throw out the window, yeah.
Thrown out from his position as the trusted advisor on somebody else. This is where I do the general evaluators report. We are big on speeches here, we're big on evaluations, and we're big on giving feedback to speakers, table topic speakers, and evaluators themselves. Hence why we have a general evaluator here. Also, occasionally in some clubs, they also do comments about the meeting. I'm just going to note that, as always, it's important we pride ourselves here at Golden Speakers in starting on time. We were close to that. We were a few minutes late. It's always good when we can actually hit that. Just want to, first off, recognize our guest, Alex, for stepping up here cold with no previous table topics experience for anybody to go before him. So that was a bold move there. And it was also really great seeing Toastmasters stepping up to the challenge. For example, Jean realizing that Fraser could handle it or maybe could be a little bit swamped with all the options and offering to pitch in there and help out. So that's nice too. Some of our members arrived late, and I just want to say that I appreciate those of you showing up. I understand the temptation to just say, well, forget it. I'll be back and I'll be on time next week. And it's always a pleasure to see you late rather than next week. It's far too long to see. For the evaluations of the evaluators, I liked how Fraser had something for, Alex, Emery, Veda, and Jean. He had nothing for Will, but I find it hard to find fault with that. So, keep up the good work, Fraser. Jean, I think you managed to capture, I think you managed to bat about 2 or 3. You had something for Fraser and Dennis. I don't think I noticed anything for Art.
Get Art.
Art's a tricky guy. He's pretty polished. So, what's interesting here, I'll just comment in closing, that both evaluators had suggestions that seemed kind of contrary. One of them wanted to move more, other wanted to move less. And this is a good time just to remind everybody that evaluations are just the opinions, beliefs, preconceived notions of the evaluator that we present to you to basically create a better speech. And you, as the speaker, are in the driver's seat. You take that feedback and you utilize it in whatever method you need to become a better speaker and leader out in the world. And with that, it's my pleasure to call up our bold leader, our temporary leader for today, for this meeting, our Toastmaster, Orion Abrams.
All right, now for the most rewarding section of the meeting, the rewards. First, I'd like to call up Manoli for Best Speaker and the ribbon for number 5, Your Body Speaks. Next we have our Best Evaluator, which was Jean Symington Craig. And finally, our Best Table Topics, we have Alex. now our president, Dennis.
Thanks for everybody for your participation, and especially thanks to guests for coming over here to join us today. We hope you guys will join us in general. I think you guys have some fantastic things to offer, and I think really it's great to see everybody growing with their skills together. Could we take a moment for our guests to just talk about what they thought about the meeting and some comments for them? Which of you would like to start? Bela?
Thank you for inviting me. Brought it back some great memories. I'm not able to attend right now on a regular basis. As you know, I've been in Toastmasters previously, so I'm able to eke out a topic. I was lucky to get the easiest topic that I could have. I had no gardening experience whatsoever, but when I was growing up, we had great little bit of strawberries, but great raspberries, and they don't come in herds. I think they come in maybe hedges or something like that. And the other thing that I had a great memory with was when Will was about picking those things. I used to mow his lawn, and they had a huge area that they were trying to let grow wild to encourage wild species. And the city cracked down and said, you can't do that. So it made my, I guess, I don't know if I ever mowed that area, but I think I had to get some extra work in. It was about a good extra half acre, quarter acre of land. But it was good thinking of you when you were 10. I think I knew you about that time. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having me, Mr. President.
Oh, yeah. You guys who would like to go next to talk a little bit about it?
Well, I came to see whether Orion was going to screw it up or do great. I was pretty sure he'd screw it up, but I was wrong, as I have been so many times parroting him. He did a great job leading the meeting of a great club that's doing a great service for everyone. Way to go, Orion.
Pick somebody out.
Yeah, he's right. This is a great club, and it's nice to see everybody take criticism so well, which is something I really want to learn how to do. Really inspiring to see everybody get up there, and you guys have a lot of great skills. I'd love to learn the rules and how to conduct the speeches better, and if I could talk to Will afterwards about joining, I'd really like to be a part of this.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Then, how do I pronounce your name? Ashton?
Maysan.
Maysan.
Yes.
Maysan.
Okay, thank you for this great event. As you can tell, English is my second language, so I enjoy listening to you guys, Toastmasters, and people who did the table Toastmaster. I did enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to come again and try to participate in this event. It takes a little time for me to have that get this confidence to come and try to make a speech, and I'm looking forward to do that. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
It's a great experience to grow, and we really appreciate that you're coming with us, joining everybody.
I would just like to mention that I'm the guy you see to schedule speeches. I learned something with this meeting. I'm doing the role of Vice President of Education, that probably scheduling 2 main speakers is not enough. If one is not able to make it, then we're down to 1, which was nice in that we had a great expanded table topics. But I'm going to try to get 3 speeches scheduled per night, just to make sure we have at least 2. So we have openings for next week, so come see me.
Sounds good. Good opportunity for those of you who wanna do some more organized speeches. Is there any other business that anybody else would like to discuss? Yep.
I'd just like to mention anyone who wants to talk to our Vice President of Membership, Manoli. Manoli there, best speaker of the evening, should talk to her because she'll have applications and she's can answer questions. We all can answer questions, but she's the one that kind of puts it into motion there, so feel free.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great opportunity to join, and then sometimes you can have membership for a long time, and for about, I think mine goes all the way till October, so they're really great deals for people here. It's a good deal. It's a much better deal than a college course where you pay 20 times the price for the same thing. All right, thanks for the input, everybody. Are there any other details or business to conduct before we adjourn the meeting? If no, then that's it. Meeting adjourned.